So first, I think I want to start with Salesforce's second edition State of Commerce report. So first, I want to know what were maybe some of the most surprising pieces of that report as you're going through, looking at billions of data points. I mean, you guys have so much access. What was surprising to you?
This is our second edition of the report. The first edition we fielded right in the middle of 2020. So, what we were trying to understand was how are organizations, commerce organizations, adapting in a period of rapid change from the market to the customer. And in this version, we fielded it in February of 2022. And so it was a little bit different time. We were coming out of a lot of heavy restrictions. People are moving into a more state of normalcy. And so we wanted to understand, given us moving forward, how are organizations changing their strategy and what are they planning for moving forward? What are some of the things that they're prioritizing in terms of their investments? So we asked a lot of things. And in the report, we dive into a lot of different topics. For me, one of the most surprising things was looking at the regional breakdown of the data. So we looked at over 21 different countries. And what was consistent was that emerging markets were really ahead of the curve in terms of new technology, new commerce tech. They were much more likely to have already invested in the headless architecture for their commerce business. And they're also much more likely to have been investing in cryptocurrency as a form of payment and experimenting in different Web3 strategies like with NFTs, especially when we looked at it, their data compared to the typical more mature markets, especially in North America, they were just much more likely to have invested in those new innovations. So for me, that was most surprising.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you always hear about the leapfrog effect. I know we've talked about it a few times on the show where, many markets just skipped point of sale systems or just skipped, a core piece of technology that many companies here in the US are using. Other markets were like, no, we'll just go right past to the next thing. So that's really interesting. Are there any markets that come to mind that, you were most surprised by or that you think are the farthest ahead?
One that sticks out is Latin America in particular. I believe off the top of my head, they had the highest rates of headless commerce adoption and were much more invested in crypto as a form of payment than anywhere else. That market was certainly driving the numbers and the trends that we saw, but it really was across the board, especially, like I said, when we compared it to our more mature commerce markets, nearly everybody was, like you said, the leapfrog effect. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We saw that.
Yeah, it seems like there could be some good case studies that larger enterprises could have around these markets and just see what some of the different companies in these markets are doing to kind of see. I mean, could they even do that though? I guess that's my question is like, can they even move quick enough to catch up with these other markets? Because you essentially have to maybe kill everything you're doing and then start over if you want to be like them. So I wonder how companies here can even think about moving in that direction, if at all, or moving quick enough.
If you have a large international presence and you're moving into those smaller markets, that might be an opportunity, right, to experiment with those newer technologies and then test and optimize and then expand out across your, other points of business. But that's an advantage if you are a large company that is, expanded across international parts of or all over the globe. I think, if you're a smaller company or you only operate in one market, absolutely. It's hard. It's hard to rip and replace and reinvent your entire strategy and way of thinking. And so I think a lot of organizations are taking a wait and see approach, especially to some of these newer technologies like headless and Web3, which is totally fair. A lot of the change and innovation that we're going to see happen in some of these larger, more mature markets is, I think, going to be driven by the consumer or the buyer. And so we see that happening in other parts of commerce, especially with channels. So more and more customers are engaging across so many different channels to buy. And this is true on both the B2C and the B2B side of the business. In fact, B2B organizations are much more likely to have invested in social commerce. And that's likely driven by the relevance of LinkedIn and how important that is for B2B organizations. But just seeing how the customer and where the customer is and where the customer is demanding that interaction and having that experience, that's driving investment. And so one of the hypotheses that we had going into the study was that with COVID, that drove a lot of channel investment. So channels across social media, gaming, mobile applications, the new Web3 technologies. We thought that was going to start to slow down as we move forward and things open back up. We would see traditional channels sort of coming back to the forefront. But for organizations, that's just not what they're doing. We see channel investment actually continuing to accelerate, especially for organizations that we define as digital leaders. So, digital leaders are those that report having a very high level of success within digital commerce, and they say that their digital commerce is having a very positive impact on their organization as a whole. And so those organizations who are leaders in digital, they're continuing to invest. They've already invested, they're investing right now, and they say that they're going to continue to invest over the next 2 years. And that's really change that's being driven by the customer, which is really cool to see.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment was made possible by our friends at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. If you're looking for the #1 platform for all your commerce needs, go check out salesforce.com/commerce. And don't forget to subscribe below and tap that little bell icon so you can stay on top of all the amazing new segments and full episodes that we'll be putting out over the coming year with some of the best and most influential commerce leaders out there.